Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. It is currently Wednesday and we got the news today that Trump has officially made a nomination for the ATF's permanent director, and that is Robert Cicada. Could be Cicada. I actually cannot find any consensus on how to say this man's last name. And actually, I can't even find any consensus on what exactly this means for gun owners, though I do have some info on him and his background, as he's an ATF veteran of 20 years. But before I get into that, this video today is brought to you by Blackout Coffee Company. Blackout is my pro-Second Amendment coffee roaster of choice, both because of their great coffee and their commitment to your rights. They support this channel, but also the fight for the Second Amendment through their partnerships with major gun rights groups like GOA, FPC, and the Second Amendment Foundation. In fact, I saw recently that this year they donated over $150,000 to those groups through the sales of their partner roasts. So to help support the channel and get a cup of coffee, tea, or hot chocolate that you can be proud of, use my link down in the description, and if it's your first time, you can use code LibertyDoll for a one-time 20% discount. Alright gang, so we all remember the awfulness that was Steve Dettelbach and how he resigned ahead of being fired. Then we had Kash Patel assigned to the role, but after reports came out that he was basically a non-entity at the ATF and was kind of only occupying the title of interim director, he was shuffled back to the FBI full-time and Dan Driscoll got put in. Now Dan Driscoll has been doing double duty as well, as he's also the Secretary of the Army. After Driscoll got put in, Deputy Director Marvin Richardson, who was a huge gun control proponent, stepped down, but was probably actually more or less pushed out and was replaced by Robert Cicada. Cicada was previously the Executive Assistant Director and oversaw the agency's Office of Regulatory Operations, Office of Field Operations, and the Office of Intelligence Operations. Also, side note, why we need all of these offices and executives and bureaucrats is honestly beyond me. There are far too many. Defund it all. But before his 20 years at the ATF, which I think is a little problematic in and of itself, he was in the NYPD and a cop in Plantation, Florida. He was part of the NYPD's anti-gang enforcement unit and street crime unit, and in Florida, he was part of SWAT. Then he ended up as a field agent for the ATF in Hyattsville, Maryland, and worked on the Regional Area Gang Enforcement Task Force from 2005 to 2011. Then he transferred to Tampa for 2 years, and in 2013 went to ATF headquarters, where he got sent all over the place. Now, my first thought here is that, okay, so we have a career ATF agent here who, if he was pro-Second Amendment, at least as strongly as you and I might like, well, that shows that he's okay working with the bad guys for 2 decades. And now with all of the stories that I have been covering of law enforcement not giving a rat's butt about your Second Amendment rights, and again, with someone who is basically a career ATF guy, to me, that does not inspire confidence. But then again, I don't think anyone could really inspire confidence. Many of us had high hopes for Kash Patel, and that fell flat. Now, another curious thing is this man seems to have not made very many public comments for or against gun control. The only public comment that we really have is around his work, the National Shooting Sports Foundation, around the dangers of straw purchases and the need for safe storage. So where he actually stands on anything, we don't really know, and there was no big pomp and circumstance around the announcement. In fact, it was introduced to the Senate and then didn't hit any news outlets until the next day, and even then, it was just the places like Bearing Arms, Truth About Guns, places like that talked about it today, and I don't even think the Washington Post mentioned anything about it until about an hour ago, and it is almost 9 p.m. None of the major gun rights groups at this point have made a statement about it one way or the other, as far as I know, except I believe the NRA was like, well, let's just defund the ATF, which I agree with. So it's kind of weird that nobody is really saying anything about this one way or the other. I've seen some posts saying that they are looking into his record, but as of right now, there's not a ton of record to look into beyond, again, working with the ATF to restrict your rights for 20 years. But when Cicada was named number 2 man back in April, the National Shooting Sports Foundation seemed to see it as a positive thing. They put out a press release then saying Deputy Director Cicada has the experience, wisdom, and respect of his colleagues to effectively lead the men and women of the ATF. Deputy Director Cicada respects the Second Amendment and understands the firearm industry is not the enemy, but valuable partner that assists ATF in its core mission of combating violent crime. Firearm retailers are on the front lines helping to prevent the criminal acquisition of firearms. They are a vital source of information to ATF special agents on illegal straw purchasing of firearms. As a special agent in charge, Deputy Director Cicada has been on the ground with the firearm industry to promote public awareness to stop these crimes from occurring and has the career history of working with the firearm industry to ensure law-abiding citizens can exercise their Second Amendment rights. What proof we have of him working towards us exercising those rights, I have yet to see. Beyond, again, those 2 programs that he has worked with the NSSF. They said that he already has a good working relationship with the firearms industry, so I guess that's what we have to go on. He has supposedly been working directly with Robert Leder to overhaul the ATF's regulations, including rolling back Biden's zero-tolerance rule. How much of that was him and how much of that was the Second Amendment executive orders, I don't know. But I suppose, technically speaking, if the ATF is going to exist, it needs someone in charge. At the very least, he sounds better than Dettelbach, and at least he isn't David Chipman. So I suppose if that is our yardstick that we're measuring by, which is a terrible yardstick, no public record is better than a record with Giffords or Brady. As a quick update, this morning, the New York Post put out an article saying that gun rights groups are hailing the pick as the first ever pro-Second Amendment director. But I have yet to see any gun rights groups actually saying that. Their source is a quote from Knox Williams, president and executive director of the American Suppressor Association. That is the only Cicada is pro-Second Amendment source they quoted. Eric Burleson, who previously filed a bill to abolish the ATF, said that it was a bad pick, and the Cicada is only a bureaucrat that will not help an already broken agency. If any more information about this guy comes out, I will certainly let you guys know because this is going to be an interesting thing to watch. His confirmation is expected to be relatively uncontroversial, but you could also look at that as, well, Donald Trump not being willing to put in that extra work and political capital to help gun owners the way that he promised. So there are a couple different ways that we could look at this situation. Again, if anything else comes out, I will bring it to you because this is the man who will be potentially affecting the core of our gun rights for the next however long. In the meantime, you guys know the drill for all of the algorithm things. Please do them. And as always, thanks for tuning in. Stay safe out there and happy shooting.